أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله الحمد لله رب العالمين أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله صلى الله عليه وسلم, which means in the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Merciful, all praise is due to Allah, the Lord of all the worlds. I bear witness that there is nothing worthy of worship except Allah and Allah alone, that Allah has no partners. And I bear witness that the Prophet Muhammad ibn Abdullah, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, may the peace and blessings of Allah be upon him, is his last divinely sent messenger and the seal of the prophethood. Ameen. We want to welcome our friends and guests in South Africa, the United States, and around the world to this week's edition of A Conversation with El-Hajj Mauri Saalakhan. I am pleased once again to be your host. Coming to you through the Salam Media platform out of Johannesburg, South Africa. Salam Media is an online portal for humanitarian journalism. We don't just report the news, we advise you on what you can do about it. Today, once again, we have two special guests and a very special topic. Our brother Baron Jamaal Bell or Musa. We know him as commonly as Brother Jamaal Musa. He received a Bachelor of Arts degree in Urban Studies and earned a certificate in Afro-American Studies from the University of Maryland in 1991. He received the John B. Slaughter Outstanding Senior Award in 1991 for contributions to the Black community at the University of Maryland. Brother Jamaal also served as a judge for the state of Maryland's Black Saga competition in the years 1992 through 2017. Our brother Jamaal served 6 years as Secretary of the Board of the Islamic Society of Southern Prince George's County. He currently serves as Khatib for Darul Tawheed Islamic Center in Southeast Washington, D.C. Last but certainly not least, our brother chairs the Board of Directors for the Afia Foundation, a Muslim-led human rights organization based here in the Washington, D.C. metro area. Our brother Taariq, ibn-Jamil Lang. He was born to two community Black activist parents who accepted Islam in the 1960s as followers of Malcolm X, aka El-Hajj Malik el-Shabazz. He grew up in the Bronx, New York, and was raised to aid and assist his community and the Black empowerment movement. He attended college in Boston and got involved with Dawah, spreading the message of Islam. He later moved to Washington, D.C., where he is now based. Throughout his years, he continually studied the Book of Allah, the sacred Quran, the life of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and he helped to establish different masajid or mosques in the around the DC area. Brother Taariq has volunteered in the prisons since 2005, and he has served in the DMV area as a Muslim Amir, trying to organize the Muslims and teach the basics of Islam for a number of years now. And for the past year, he started using social media to increase his dawah effort. Towards this end, he has also become a talk show host. Our thought-provoking topic for today is challenges facing Muslims in America, African American perspectives. You know, one of the major issues confronting Muslims in America today revolves around the question of how do we, as a faith community, most effectively factor the unique sociological experience of the African American community into the challenges we face. An even more important and sensitive question is, what role should African American Muslims play in this equation? For a Sunday afternoon, evening in South Africa discussion on this thought-provoking topic, let me welcome our guests to this platform. Assalamu alaikum, ikhwan.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah.
Thank you for having me here on your show. Thank you for inviting me.
Alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah. Two of among the most committed brothers I know in the DMV. How could I not have you?
Well, actually, it's all three because you one of the most committed brothers that I know.
Alhamdulillah.
Yes, sir.
Never seen you stop working. Continue to work. May Allah reward you for your efforts. You work day and night and never stop. And so,
may Allah accept the efforts of us all, Aki.
Ameen, ameen, ameen.
Let me start out by asking the two of you, what are the first thoughts that come to mind when we reflect on the title of today's conversation? Let's begin with you, Brother Jamaal. What's the first thing that comes to mind, Aki?
Well, the first thing that comes to my mind is a ayat in Quran, 14th ayat, the fourth verse, and I'll just say this in English, where Allah revealed the meaning of, and we did not send any Rasul, any messenger, but with the language of his people, so that he might explain to them clearly. Then Allah makes them whom he pleases err, and he guides whom he pleases, and he is mighty, the wise. And so the connection there, and I say this often during the khutbah, and I have to say it slowly because the first reaction to this Zaki is like, what is he saying? Nabi Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam was sent for everyone, but Nabi Muhammad was not sent to everyone. And what I mean by that is he was sent to his people in his language, which was the Arabiya. And now it's for us to take that message, to study that message, and bring it to our people in our current time, place, and circumstance. So that's the first thing that came to my mind, is that we now need to translate the haq, bring the haq to our people in a different time, language, and circumstance than what the Nabi and the Sahaba all lived in, were victorious in.
Mm-hmm. Alhamdulillah. Brother Taariq, your first thought.
I mean, well, my mind, I think about 20 things at one time. So, but one of the things that I wanted to is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about in Surah Al-Hujurat. Says, Ya ayyuhan nasu, inna khalaqnakum min dhakarin wal untha wa ja'alnakum shu'ayban wa qabaila li ta'arafu inna akramakum indallahi atqakum inna Allaha alimun khabir. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us that he has created us from one man and one woman and made us into tribes and nations. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the one that said it. So what? So we can know each other. And one of the things I tell the people, if in order for you to be able to know me, I got to know me. I got to know my history. And this thing that we talk about, the separation, different tribes, Allah is the one that said what he said, Inna khalaqnakum. So when he says khalaqnakum, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created us into tribes and nations, right? And he created us from male and female and then divided us and made us into the tribes and nations. But as we have the instance with Musa alayhi salam, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent him to a man that had more knowledge on a certain subject. When he went to Musa, when Musa went to this land with Khidr, did he go learn and did this knowledge? No. He went to another man's land, right? Musa got revelation, all of this. He went to another man's land. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told him, this is my servant, this is my slave. But he watched the things that this man did and made comments on it. And the man said, didn't I tell you you're not going to have patience with you, something you don't understand? And each of these things weren't religious things. It was about the boat. He knew what was going on with the king. It was about the boy. He knew what was going on with the family. And it was about the war. He knew what was going on with that previous situation. But someone from the outside that had more knowledge with Musa, alayhi salam, and a lot of times I tell brothers from other places, you have much knowledge as Musa? I said, no. I said, well, even Musa was checked by somebody else when he went to another man's land and tried to tell him what he did because he acted as though Allah doesn't love them or have other servants. And alhamdulillah, Allah loves us. We've always loved him. Now, alhamdulillah, we got the guidance and we just have to put that work in to be able to be good servants and make this change.
Both of you brothers are involved in da'wah, spreading the message of Islam. What are some of the foremost challenges you confront on a regular basis?
Brother first.
Yeah, well, so the challenges that I confront or see on a foremost basis, and this is a generational thing too, Brother Taariq and Saalakhan, is that we're in this internet age now, where you don't have to crack the books. You can just log on and do a Google search, and wallahi, all of a sudden you're a sheikh now because you put the sheikh, Google, and that you think you know something without digging into to the text and the tafsir, hadith, and things along that nature. And also, it's more conspiracy, it's more suspicion out here now. And Salakhan, we were talking about this the other day. I put a post on your page about coronavirus,
Right.
for example. And I was mentioning the wisdom that I got from the same surah that Brother Tariq quoted from Hujarat, but the sixth ayat, which says in it, Ya ayyuha alladhina amanu, if a fazit comes to you with a report, then look into it, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, and what I was saying is that as a younger Muslim, I always understood that to mean, hey, if a liar comes to you, we can't trust that liar. So you need to investigate. But here recently, as I continue to mature in the Quran and get greater hikmah, there's a flip that I noticed to that, which is when it comes to a matter of public concern, public health, Allah doesn't say shut the liar down. This liar, this one time, might be telling the truth. So you got to go investigate that thing and do not go off your suspicions. So I think I said in that post to the Muslim, suspicion is not a substitute for knowledge. Our people are too gullible based on a rightful suspicion, based on a rightful suspicion, based on a historical reason. But that's not a substitute for knowing what's happening right now. So we have a lot of Muslims, even here on Facebook, spreading rumors, spreading suspicion, when the Muslim is not just supposed to bring the alternative story to what they call mainstream media, but the Muslim needs to bring the truth. And we have to be more investigative in the information that we bring because now people believe anything out there that they get on the internet. One thing, and then I let the brother come on, is one of the things you'll find about Islam on the internet, which is one of the craziest things I ever heard, that Islam was started by the Catholic Church. That's
What?
an internet. Yes, that
What?
Islam was started by the Catholic Church.
Oh,
That's
man.
that's some of the tropes you'll find in some of the so-called, I call them the fake woke community, or these conscious communities, which are based in the prism of Afrocentric and therefore the Arabs and Islam and all of that type of thing. But people will believe in anything without any verified knowledge of the thing, and so falsehood can spread just so quickly now. But that's the main challenge that I find is that brothers and sisters, they believe in so much falsehood, it's hard to get them to see objectively and study the universe and the world for what it is, not for what somebody's telling them on Facebook.
Brother Tariq, before you weigh in on this question, I want to say something on what Brother Jamaal just said. This unchecked suspicion and with the conspiratorial rhetoric thrown in for good measure is even more dangerous to our community when it comes to this pandemic, given the fact that we are being disproportionately affected by the pandemic. I mean, when you look at the numbers of folk who are becoming sick and folk who are dying nationwide, disproportionately, Black and brown folk are represented highly in those numbers. I mean, disproportionately. And so, the point that our brother just made about the danger of, getting so absorbed in the conspiratorial rhetoric that the suspicion makes us even more reluctant to access what may very well be a remedy for what is disproportionately affecting us. But with that, inshallah ta'ala, we're gonna be having a deeper discussion on this area of challenge next on the 20th, actually on the 20th of this month. And Brother Jamaal, you're gonna be back with us. We're gonna have Dr. Omar Malik, Abdul Malik with us, and you're also going to be joining us for that conversation, inshallah ta'ala. But let's get back to this question about what represents the foremost challenges that you confront in your dawah work, Brother Taariq.
Okay, well, one of the things, I wanted to go on what my brother was saying with that ayah, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, in Surah Al-Hujurat, he actually goes over, our code. This was in the 9th year after Hijrah. And at that time, a lot of people were coming into the religion. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had to teach us a code of ethics, certain things. And he talked about that. It's a bit suspicion. And then, like you said, with that, I'll do my shaitan. Say, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu in ja'akum fasiqun binaba'in fattabayyanu an tusibu qauman bi jahalatin fatusbihu ala ma fa'altum nadimun. Like he said, the major thing is he said, when somebody, a faucet, comes to you with some news, investigate, because you may harm a people in ignorance and then regret what you did. And this is the thing, this is a command. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent this revelation to the companions, we sent it to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And we have to remember, even though the Quran was just sent to the Prophet, it was sent to a group of people, everybody, over that 23-year period. If we look at Ali, radiallahu anhu, and we say he was 10. When it was over, he was 33 years old. So this man was basically raised by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He was raised by the community, but Allah will continue to give him codes and ethics. And one of the things is when this code came down for our brotherhood, if you broke the code, it put you outside the Jamaal. It put you outside the group. And so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us what? Fatabayyun, investigate. But he says when it's a fasik, and the thing is it wasn't no non-Muslim that said it. It was a Muslim that had said it. This is what some say, the tafsir concerning the group that had said that the people were going to do something. There was another group. So we have to investigate amongst each other. But when we get something from the news, when we get something from the media, when we get something from this illuminated visions or whatever of because it's not, I know this, brother. I see you guys regularly. That's you. This is an image. Anything can be changed. So we have to investigate, and we have to investigate it from the right sources, and we have to be able to go to that. A lot of times people go to Shape, Google, or this Shape. We have so many books that we need to be able to reference. So even when we look at some information, we have to see where it comes from, where are the sources, and how authentic are they. And so, but for me, the challenge is, like with social, like one of the things last year was the first year that I really got involved, and I saw a lot of people argue. I don't have time for arguing. I'm not in it for that. If I'm going to present some evidence to you, you're going to go back and forth, then, okay, that's cool. We're not the ones that really need to talk. Because if I see you in the street and I walk up to you and you come at me like that, I'm going to say, yo, salam, and I'm going to keep walking. So my dawah has been used to one-on-one. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam had experience, we know a hadith of Jibril. And Jibril alayhi salam came to the Prophet, and he came in the form of a man. And he sat next to the Prophet. He put his leg next to his leg, his knee next to his knee, and put his hand on it. And this is the dawah. This is the real way. This is the way that we can transfer. Because you see me. I know this brother. I know you. But I know Brother Saalakhan from experience, from seeing it. And that's the dawah, how we can to be able to affect the people. So we need more da'is. We need more people coming, teaching the basic, learning the basic. And we need to stay away from arguing. The thing is we have to find the commonalities. Do you believe in Allah? I believe in Allah. Do you believe in his angels? I believe in his angels. Do you believe in his books? I believe in his books. Do you believe in his messengers? I believe in his messengers. Do you believe in the qadar, the khayru, the good and the bad of it? Okay, do you believe in last day? Let's discuss that. But the issues that we argue about, that we don't agree about, why are we wasting time on that when we can build on what we agree about? That's the challenge. Being with people that want to argue about things we disagree upon. And like I said, in person is easy. Salam. Y'all, I'm out.
Brother Taariq, for a number of years now, you've spent time in prisons doing dawah. What are the challenges and the opportunities you see in that environment?
Well, alhamdulillah, akhi, I enjoyed doing it. Unfortunately, my father was in prison until he died. My grandfather was in prison until he died. And family, another good friend, been in prison for 37 years. So that's why I do the dawah. I've never been to prison. I went to Boston University, biomedical engineering. So, did other things. But I grew up in the Bronx. I grew up in that lifestyle, being around the people and all of that and stuff, and not involved in it. But, in order to survive in the Bronx or whatever, in that situation, you got to know how to deal. So I try to go to the people and I deal with them. But what was happening is it was an attack that we were getting, certain groups. Somebody come in, if first question they ask you, what masjid did you go to? What masjid did you go to? And I would say Masjid al-Arab. Like, Masjid al-Arab, where's that? I said the Prophet ﷺ was given 4 things, 5 things, 6 things in the hadith. And one of them that he made the whole earth his masjid. So that's the masjid I go to. Unless you're saying you went to masjid, you're from Nabawiyah, Masjid al-Haram, or Al-Aqsa, you got something that you can, but otherwise, I feel, no, the whole earth is the masjid. But this attack of our people, because there was a lot of brothers that have been doing dawah for years in the prison system. And then there started becoming groups that as soon as somebody come in, they attack them. Then after a while, people stop coming back, but then they have no one. What do they do? But the thing is it's a beautiful situation for people to really be able to learn Islam if they realize that, like the Prophet said, he said, the life of this world is a prison to the believer, but a Jannah to the disbeliever. So, for those that's in prison, if you realize that you're in a small prison, you have these restrictions, you take advantage of it and you focus on your religion. And then when you come out and you act that same way, you can succeed in this life because you're staying away from the restrictions. So, but that was it, just the attack. So, alhamdulillah, I loved it because, it got me stronger. Okay, you come with your evidence, I'm gonna go research. And I'm gonna come back. If you come back, if it's the truth is against me, I'm gonna bring it. You know what? You was right, brother. That's the truth. Here it is. Alhamdulillah, I was wrong. I said, okay. Then the next time, it is. Because I don't want to be right to be right. I want to be right with Allah. But the thing is so the brotherhood is good. If we can use that, to help people, but unfortunately, many of them come out and they oppress our community and stuff. So that's all I saw. That's the challenges, challenges.
Brother Jamaal, on your end, by the grace of Allah Ta'ala, you have become a valuable fact-based authority on pushing back on the, I guess you could describe it as the Afrocentric attacks on Islam. Why is this area of intellectual jihad fi sabilillah and da'wah so important?
Well, the reason why it's so important, the first thing, and this is a difficult pill for us to swallow, but in the early 70s, many people were under the teaching of the Nation of Islam as led by Mr. El-Hajj Muhammad and also made famous by El-Hajj Mauri Saalakhan and Farrakhan. And in that particular day and time, the people were out on the streets, Brother Saalakhan, doing just what Brother Taariq was talking about. They were out there in the presence of the people who needed a message of being, awakened. But since that time, since some of us have gotten in our minds more knowledge, more dalil, more burhan, it seems as if we have retreated from the streets, from the sharia, and into the masajid. And we're not on the block anymore. And so we have left as Muslims a void in some of these communities. And filling in that void, projected a lot of times through the internet, is this Afrocentric message that really takes on something Mr. Muhammad taught. He taught that Christianity was the white slave master's religion. And now this Afrocentric movement, piggybacking on something Chancellor Williams wrote in his Destruction of Black Civilization, said that Islam is the Arab religion of your Arab slave master, trying to get at and gnaw at the teachings of Mr. Muhammad. And so these kids on the street now, a lot of them, they push this narrative that to be a Muslim is to be a sellout or to be an abd for for the Arab. And so, in order for dawah to go forward in our communities correctly, that trope has to be addressed, because you're saying that I have something for you that will liberate you, and then you have other people saying this is enslaving you to the thoughts and the ideology of someone else. And here's the key in these discussions, Saalakhan, is that these brothers that push comedic science and all these philosophies, they always talk about history, but they don't talk about the text. They don't talk about what the teachings are. And so I try to say in these discussions that, hey, first I'll shut them down on their misnomers and ignorant information about history, but it comes back to what is it that we believe and what are we pushing to. There's nothing in Islam that makes a scared person in this deen. I'll say a punk. And sometimes I say, listen, Islam is not the religion that we want to go and force people to be Muslims. When we're in ranks, making salat in our ranks, we don't want somebody next to us crying and sniffling and shivering. Oh, he's making me be here standing next to him. We want soldiers and warriors in our ranks. We don't have time to oppress people and bring in cowards. So this is not the way of Islam. But that's why that's important, because they're using racism and flipping it against the Muslims and teaching people that it's our deen, our way of life is foreign to us naturally. And that's a dangerous thing.
And I'd like to speak on that. I mean, the thing is major deception. Here it is, individuals that they study history. Now, when we speak about Malcolm, but we don't talk about Islam. Now, this man, that's all he did. His transformation from being a common street hood was the first stage with the nation, which they cleaned them up, and they cleaned them up in the stages to be to get to full Islam. And when he went to full Islam, he went to another level internationally, you see. But there was no time in that time where we recognized him, where people started noticing, who he was, that he wasn't considered a Muslim. And then for himself, until when he went to full Islam, then he understood the difference between La ilaha illallah, that there's no God except Allah, and that he's not a man, and that Muhammad is Rasulullah, that Muhammad is the last messenger. There's no prophet, there's no messenger, there's nothing after him. Once he understood that. But the thing is people want to praise Malcolm, right? But they want to fight against Islam. Then these false historians, and I call them false historians because they will study a fact. They will talk about Timbuktu. They will talk about West Africa. They will talk about Mali. They will talk about all these places. And if they did any homework, if they got a degree, they know that these were Muslim places. They know that the Muslims were the ones that came here. They know that the Muslims that were the ones that would continue to fight. We know in the prison system what happens. When the guys go to prison, they want to join us. They're not joining the nation. They're not joining the 5%ers. They joining the Muslims. Why? Because the way that we get down, we protect our own. So when slavery was happening, which prison right now is slavery, because it says involuntary servitude is legal except in cases of imprisonment where a person has been duly convicted of a crime. So they're slaves, especially since they're renting them out for $1 an hour. So we have it in this slave situation. We are a strong group. So when we had the other colonial slavery, we were still the ones that were willing to fight and protest. These so-called historians study that, but yet they're quiet. Why? Why? Why are you quiet when you know the truth? If you're really a historian and trying to give the truth, then you would give that fact. But what? They fear that people will come into Islam and know the truth. How is it that we can have it, that we had that much Islamic history, and then by the time we came around in the 1800s, you had none? Because the slave owners made sure that they used our own people to be able to remove that history so we would not go towards Islam, because they know that it gives us to have no fear. When you love Allah and you know that you take my physical life, if I'm working and trying to spread this religion like Malcolm, he was working and trying to spread the religion, Allah says that do not speak of him as dead. Speak of him as alive, because they maintain. Why? Because this person is there. So you're not fearing human beings. But the other ones, you fear the whip, you fear that, and that's how the Muslim was. And they have this long-standing history of all of these things, but yet these so-called historians leave that out. And so unfortunately, our tribe, our people, listen to these guys thinking that they're sincere, not knowing that they're straight liars, right? And then they mimic the stuff. But then when they come to me, I'm gonna sit down and I'm talking. Let's go over real history. You see, even like when I hear people say, I heard a person. I try not to mention names, but I heard somebody doing an interview, and he said, "Well, you know, the thing is, I don't like the Bible because you know, you don't see no black people in there." I'm like, black people? Yo, bro, I went to Egypt. When I went to Egypt, they don't let you walk in with cameras for a reason. Because when you walk down the hallways and you see the different dynasties and you see during the time of Musa and all of them and everything, you see the colors of the people. They were black and brown. You see how it is? So it's clear. We don't have to, you know, think I got to look at it or anything like that. Or I can go to archaeological evidence and dig up the bodies and you can see the shapes of the people and stuff. We know this. But here it is. He's saying that, you know, I didn't see any black people. I'm like, isn't this the people of North Africa? The northernest tip of Africa, because it's not the middle of the East. But yet we still mimic the same thing. So these so-called historians that's working for us actually working for them. That's my understanding.
Mm-hmm. Excuse me, brothers. Moving right along, what are your thoughts? You know, given we are right now, and this is a very important question. This next question that I'm going to put to both of you is a very, very important one, because it our communal response to this question will go a long way in terms of, you know, hopefully, prayerfully building bridges, mending fences, very important and very sensitive fences that need to be mended in order for the Muslim community in America as a communal force being able to respond to the challenges of our times. You know, right now we are in the midst of a global pandemic, and the effects of this pandemic are not going to go away anytime soon. It's going to be with us for quite some time. But, you know, along with the, you know, the tremendous weight and challenge of this pandemic, there is also an opportunity built in, an opportunity for a reset. Where it comes to Muslims in America, you know, one of the beauties and blessings of Islam in America is its diversity. We have all of the tribes represented, or the majority of the tribes on Mother Earth represented in Islam in this part of the world, in this neck of the global wilderness. What are your thoughts on the tensions that exist between indigenous and immigrant Muslims, and what in your opinion, in your respective opinions, what are the things that can be done to help resolve these tensions and to enable us to be able to respond to the challenges of our times as a communal, faith-based force that not only produces good for us as a faith community, but also for the better of the two Americas? Who wants to go first?
That's my brother first.
Brother Jamaal.
I'm the first one with the hot potato there.
Alhamdulillah.
So, you know what, a brother, Sherman Jackson, you know, out of USC. I can't think of his Muslim name now, but this brother is a scholar extraordinaire at the research that he does. And he talked about this, I heard him maybe 3 years ago in Los Angeles, Saalakhan, on this very same issue about the tensions of indigenous, or we say black Muslims in America, and immigrant Muslims coming to America. And he said something that was profound. He said, look, we have some issues, but we tend to blow these issues out of proportion and put them on par with the historic discrimination that black people face in America under, you know, slavery and white supremacy and Jim Crow and this type of thing. So the first thing I would like to say to address that is that we can't blow these differences out of proportions. There's no incidents to put my knowledge of immigrant Muslims and black indigenous Muslims fighting, arguing, picketing, protesting. If you go to a masjid that's organized of indigenous Muslims. They're going to say to you, Alhamdulillah, brother, come here, make this a lot. It's no discrimination. We don't have separate places in their communities. However, we have to realize this, and much of, I'm not going to say most of it, but much of this is on us as indigenous Muslims, as Black Muslims in America, is that the immigrant community, number one, when they come here, they're coming for freedoms and economic opportunity. And so some of the social justice issues, it's just not going to be paramount for them. A lot of them are afraid probably of being, deported back to their respective countries. So we have to at least acknowledge what their situation is, and not see it as a thing of they hate us, they don't like us, they think we're abs in this type of thing. And so we have to bring people along with that, with the understanding that, hey, Islam is about justice, it's about correctness, it's about doing good, fisi bilillah. So I think we need to tap down some of the rhetoric that's going on with these so-called quote unquote tensions. But also, we as Black Muslims who are indigenous in America, we need to be better organized as ourselves, and also organize communities, find ways to raise funds within our communities, and we need to have facilities and centers too. When I say that, I don't mean we need to have facilities and centers for us. I'm just saying there's a lot more room in America for growth in Al-Islam, and we need to be on the forefront of having resources and giving the message to our people and establishing safe space, also in addition to that. So,
Good. All right. Alhamdulillah. I mean,
other Taariq.
Yeah, this, like, the thing is it's natural, like you said, going back to it, said so we can know each other, right? So when you don't know each other, there may be tension. Why? Because it's not a natural flow. We don't realize that we're one brotherhood. And so a lot of ignorance prevails. And that's for all people. When you're coming from other countries, and you've never really dealt with us, you have these precepts. And of course, going back from, these images that they're sending across. When I remember I had a contract and I was in Paris. And when I looked at the news and the way the news shows us, it doesn't really show us in good light. And so when they come over there and come over here to America, and one of us happens to rob them, they're going to believe everything that they saw. Yeah, I told you, man, that's how it is. But what it is that we have to open up. But that's one thing. There's the other thing as far as people that grow up here and they have, like, from their culture, they have discrimination amongst each other. They have it where, the darker side is looked down upon and stuff. And some of, especially the Southeast Asian countries and stuff, or other places. And one of the things is that when you come to this country and you do the census, I did the census, I was a census taker in, I think, 1990 or 1990. And when I would have to go to somebody from North Africa, I would have to write down that they're white. I'm like, nah, you're not white, I have to, a Dominican or somebody else, I'll write them down as a language, you see? So if you're coming from, but there are countries where you're coming from Syria and all that, and you're writing down that you're white, and you're coming here. So when they hear us talking about white people, they're like, well, I'm white, but they don't say it to you that I'm white. But you fill out the job application, you write white, you're right out, but you're white, And so, it's a lot of that dynamics. Then the ignorance, that's there, as far as, Islam, thinking that we don't know Islam. Because we don't know the Arabiya and the way that the people do or whatever, and we're getting it, alhamdulillah, many of us are. We read the Quran and we actually know it better than most people because we have used it to remove us from this shaitanic system. We live in a system that's based on what? Ana khayru minhu. I'm better than him. You see? And so when the people ask a question and say, about racism, where it come, I said the original racist was Iblis. He said, Ana khayru minhu. Khalaqatani min nar wa khalaqatahu min tin. You created me from fire while you created him from earth. So anytime somebody says that they are better than them, right? Better than somebody because what they created, they are following, saying the kalimat al-shaitan. We know in many times in these masjids, you have people and they said, yo, stay away from them. Nahnu khayrun minhum. نحن من سعودية, أنا من سعودية, أنا من, you know, Pakistan. I'm from Saudi, I'm from Pakistan. I'm better than them. And they teach their kids that. And brothers will come and say that. So we can't ignore that. And when you're teaching them the kalimat al-shaitan, you are teaching them kalimat al-shaitan, and Allah says, La tatabi'u khutuwa shaitan. Do not follow the footsteps of the shaitan. So if our Lord has told you don't follow the footsteps of the shaitan, you still follow the footsteps of the shaitan, but you think because you have knowledge that, you know, you're all right. No, Iblis has more knowledge than anybody. Iblis had been here since the time of Adam. Allah said that the Iblis was up in the heavens. That's why he was up there, because of his righteousness and knowledge. But what happened? Allah gave him a command. And Allah said he was Aba wa Stakba wa kana min al-kafirin. He was proud and arrogant. And so many people, when you say this, when you think it, and you teach your kids that you're better than them because of any other reason, or you adopt the deen of this society, and then you pass that on, that's where the conflict comes. That's what I see. And we have a lot of our children that are memorizing Quran. They're going up to levels, and they should be put forward. The reality is, if I go to Palestine, I'm not expecting me to be in charge. You got the Palestinians. I go to Afghanistan. I'm not expecting me to be in charge. You got the Afghans. I go in Afghan, that's Arabic is not their native language. They speak this. I go to any country. I'm not expecting to jump up and be in charge. Even with my knowledge, I'm there to assist, aid, and assist who's ever there in the struggle. Same thing here. Even if you come here to make money, you here, well, look, you know, we need some aid and assistance. So that thing, that zakat, the zakat is for everybody, not to send to the other countries. The zakat is to be able to what? Build up the Muslim community to those that don't have. That's why we have the fuqara and the miskin, these different groups. And so, you know, we should be able to extend that money, not just hold aside and get a nice chandelier, which is more than the rent for the average masjid in the ghetto. And then they got dirty bathrooms because they don't have the money and they got to beg their people. So this disparity has to change. That's what the tension that I see.
And Saalakhan, Brother Taariq said something about the attitude of some immigrants, that they're more knowledgeable, you know, of us. And that made me think of another part of this equation. And the way that I think about things is that we have to have self-agency. And I always look inward first before I look at others. Sometimes we as Muslims, we think we at a knowledge deficit anyway in relationship to the immigrants coming over. And so sometimes we bring an inferiority complex to the deen. I remember we were talking one day, oh, the Pakistanians, we don't want to touch toes, you know, with you in the line of salat, and brothers getting all worked up over that. And so one morning I was out in LA in the masjid in the ranks, and I'm looking down at the floor because I had this other conversation in my mind about touching toes, and none of the Pakistanis had their toes touching.
Right. Yeah, that's enough.
So it wasn't a racial matter, you know, at all. It's just a custom and culture. But when we come into Islam, particularly, we're fleeing a lot of times racism and white supremacy, and we come to Islam and there's no racism in Islam, and so we think everything is going to be alhamdulillah and this type of thing. But still, like I said, in Allah also said in Surah Al-Rum, I believe it is in English for brevity, amongst the signs, amongst the ayahs of Allah, are the difference in our colors, our loan, and our lisan, our languages. And so diversity and variety is part of the deen. And that is something for us to be embraced, but we have to be confident in our own diversity. And going back to something Brother Sherman Jackson said, he said, look, it's up for us as Black, indigenous people in America. Get that knowledge of the Haqq. Get the knowledge of the deen. Learn this religion, and you'll find that the brothers overseas, they'll respect you. Saalakhan, you know my community in Anne Arundel County, and my father for a long time. The leader was Brother Mikhail, a Black American Muslim from Buffalo, when the majority of people in that community were Pakistan. And Brother Mikhail's wife is Pakistan. But when issues of Islam came up, everybody in that community was listening to Brother Mikhail.
That's right. That's right. That's right. And Mikhail Smith, now he's, you know, alhamdulillah, the Texas community has been blessed with him.
Right.
On that question of looking inward, what is you brothers' opinion of MANA, the Muslim Alliance in North America, and the reset that the organization appears to be going through right now. What's your opinion on that?
Well, Saalakhan, I'm gonna be honest. I don't have much of an opinion because I like the fact that they have a reset, but I have yet to really see the organization itself hit community. Hit critical mass and getting out and doing what they wanted to reset. To do. So, but overall, I mean, I think it's a good thing. But the issue there is that they also need to, probably more so embrace what's happening in our communities and not so much worry about criticism, I would say, from other outside, voices.
What I like to say is, man, I reset. I'm with it. I mean, the reality is like I say, one of the things of doing a dawah in the prison. When I go inside the prison, I remember I had used to go to prison to DC jail and all that, and then I started going to juvenile facility because of my work situation, my business, and all that. So I was closer. But I started seeing things happening with the kids, so I went back. When I went back, a lot of things that we had organized, was gone. And what happens is when you're not organized, those that have, their ill intent, like you say, the fake historians and the other people in this percentage in this group and that group and stuff, they're able to come in and they take advantage of you not being organized. So instead of me coming in and, teaching the people, I mean, basically with Salat and everything, I started first organizing. You come on the block and actually, you go to the chapel. You go to the chapel, I used to call it like the Apollo. People come there, they're on their stage and they act and then Afi and answer. So the officers used to say, well, yeah, that same one, you go to the block, he's different. So I go to the block. I say, you know what, I'm not going to the chapel, I'm going to go to the block. And I go to the block. First question I ask, who's your Amir? They don't have a Amir. Okay. It's time for Salat. Call Adhan. Those that make a Salat, we make Salat together. After the Salat, I was like, you guys got to elect the Amir. And it has to be somebody that makes Salat, because if you don't pray, you have no say. You don't pray, you have no say in the community. So the first thing that you do is you first start organizing. And once you start organizing amongst the Jamaat, and you start doing the basic lessons, like the Hadith Jibril, going over those things, like the Prophet ﷺ said to Umar radiallahu anhu, he said, do you know who that is? He said, that's Jibril. He came to what? Teach you your religion. So from that instant that Jibril alayhi salam appeared and to the time he left, that our religion, that's enough to be able to teach the people their religion. But the basic thing is organizing. So alhamdulillah, this is an organized effort for our people to be able to come together and work to do something. And it has to be indigenous. One of the things is this. I've never had to go to immigration. I don't have an immigration lawyer or an immigration person. I don't have anybody worried about sending me anywhere, you see? And as long as I follow the law, then I can stay out of the jail. But people have to realize when you have to go to a person every year or whatever term to reevaluate your paperwork, they have some type of lordship or some say over you. We as the indigenous people are American citizens. And a lot of guys like, yo, I'm not American. I'm an American. Once we got in, I was born American. I got 100% rights, and I'm fighting for every right that I can. You're not taking it. They love it when you hate how you have your rights. That's why they're working so hard to take it away. But it has to be the people that you can't ship me nowhere. You can't do nothing to me. I'm going to stand up to you. But if I have to worry about, after I had this conversation, next thing I know, I got somebody knocking at my door and it's immigration. And then they say, hey, we don't like what you said. We got to, send you away. That's not the best person to put your situation in, because he's a good brother. And he came here to provide for his family, a good sister. They came here to provide for their family. And they're not here for that. So why should they put themselves on the line to get shipped back? When you here, this is your job.
On that question, on that very, very point of responsibility and taking action within the public square. Right now, we are in a very tumultuous period politically in this country, and in fact, the place we're in right now is unprecedented in modern times. And so we've got two pandemics that we're wrestling against as an American society. We have the global pandemic that we're being impacted by, and epidemiological pandemic, and then we have this political pandemic, that has culminated over many, many years, both political parties, into, you know, this person who is still occupying the Oval Office for the next few weeks. You know, he's not the reason for it, but he is a manifestation, in my humble opinion, of the culmination of all of this stuff building up over many, many, many years, the corruption and what have you. With that being said, in the elections that just took place, a record number of Muslims uh, actually won offices on the local level, on the state level, and even in the US Congress. Um, what are your views on the political challenges we face and the opportunities that are being afforded us as a faith community, you know, to be one of the much needed forces in pushing back and helping to, you know, to right this ship before it goes completely underwater? What are your views on that?
Well, you know, Brother Saalakhan, that is another hot potato.
Yes, it is.
Because we have a sentiment as Muslims when we talk about America and its politics. America is a secular democracy or secular capitalist, whatever you want to call it. America is secular. And so we as a Ummah here, particularly in the Black community, African American community, we don't have a consensus on that issue that you're bringing to the forefront right now. So one of my inspirations when I approach that subject, I always try to do so through the prism of Quran and the story in this particular case of Yusuf. Yusuf found himself in the prison.
Mm-hmm.
He said certain things to the prison mates. He said, "I denounce basically the shirk and your gods. They're just names that you have named." He stood firm on who his fathers were, Ismail, Ishaq, and Ibrahim. But at the end of the day, after he demanded justice in his case, he said to Pharaoh and the people there, "I'll take that position. Appoint me over it." So from that, I take as a lesson that when Muslims are not in power, there's still things that we need to do that in the effort to make things better for humanity. So we can't look at our situations as Muslims living in America as if every single thing is haram beyond our not doing that particular thing, but now we can't do anything. So, oh, if a Muslim runs for office, if a Muslim is in a elected place, astaghfirullah, astaghfirullah, that's haram. We have to look at this totally different for our time, place, and circumstance. We're not in authority in the order here right now. So we have to understand that there's still things that we can do and free up our thought that anything that's not according to a Sharia on this particular point on government is automatically haram. That is not the case. The need of these people in political office, brother, is to relieve people's suffering. So how can that be seen a bad thing by any focus, by any prism or any standard of measure? But it still is difficult, I must say, for people that are involved in parties, because then it's difficult not to get involved with policies that might go against the grain. So we could talk about AOC and Ilan Omar and Israel and all that type of thing. But it's a difficult one, Aki. But we have to understand that if you're doing something feasibility, if you're doing something good, that is not a haram thing if you're not violating the principles of Deen.
Assalamu alaikum. Alhamdulillah.
Yes, Brother Taariq.
Yeah. You know, the thing is, like I said, I'm from here. I'm an American. And so I'm a vote. You know, my people died, you know, to be able to get the right to do it. But I'm not just voting for anybody. One of the things, like we have our show, Cultivating the Culture, and what we're doing is going over Ice Cube's presentation that he presented to somebody called contract with Black America. And this is not something that he wrote up. But the reason why I'm going over it is because there's a lot of different issues that he pointed out. And in it, he basically, they told him they were going to talk to, they was talking to the Democratic Party. They told him to put something in there in August, and they didn't do it. And then after, so he later on went and he talked to the other ones. And as he stated, he said, whether this one's in or the other one's in, the fact is there's our needs, and we have to address our needs. You know, politics is not for the purpose of, you know, this party, that party. Politics, as my brother said, is there are needs of the people, and they have to be taken care of. When a representative, whether he's a senator, when he goes inside and he's that senator, he's not the senator for the Republicans. He's not the senator for the Democrats. He's not the senator for the, he's a senator for his constituents, and he has to be able to take care of the needs of the people. So we have needs, and we have to be able to express our needs, and we have to be able to put somebody in there that's going to work with our needs. But of course, we always have to maintain our core of our belief. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created Adam, like you said, he created what? A male and a female. And from them came many nations. So my position, like I used to tell the brothers, you know, when they talk about this group and this letter, and they say, and they name the letters, I say, well, why don't you add F and A to it? And they're like, what's F and A? I say, fornicators and adultery. Because any illegal sexual activity is legal sex or illegal sex. That's it. Yeah. We're not having a conversation on how you get down like that. It's either legal or legal. Illegal or legal. That's it. And we have to hold on to that position no matter what party you're in.
Yeah, that's funny, Aki, how that one particular acrobatic acronyms seem to get people all perplexed, but they leave out all the other things that are just as equal.
Look, in the Bible, in the Quran, for adultery, the punishment is death. So why do we turn our cheek to something like that? Why do we turn it? Because we fit in with society. One of the things I want to tell the brothers, I always say in the prison, I say, look, you know, one of the things is we can't make those that don't believe and what we believe comfortable. You see, a lot of times we say, yo, y'all Muslim, but you know, I still do this. Why are you trying to play your religion down to make somebody else that don't believe in what you believe comfortable? No, if your creator has said this and has a position, then you stand and you hold to that position. But if you actually change it for that person is basically you've given them lordship over you. You made them a lord to a certain extent. You're not worshiping them, but you know, you fear them the way that you should fear your Lord.
Yeah, I think it's important to clarify that the hudud punishment for adultery is actually it actually comes from a hadith. It's not in the Quran, it's in hadith. And there is
well, you at least get 100 lashes. That's in there, the Quran.
So I say that. Right.
Say that. Either way,
but it's a very serious.
It is
a very serious offense. It is a very serious offense, and the point is well taken. I mean, one of the arguments that I have made to our brethren who want to just focus all of their attention and all of their rhetoric on that acronym LGBTQ and base their whole raison d'etre for their position against politics on that alone. One of the arguments I make to our brothers often is that is not the issue that threatens families in America across the board, black families, white families. That is not the issue that affects that is most threatening to the families. The issue that is most threatening to the families is fornication, adultery, you know, the tearing down of the family unit, you know, as a result of us not being able to be disciplined and conscious and you know, trustworthy in our marital relations.
Real quick, some of the greatest lobbyists for the private prisons are the music industry, and this is what they call to fornication and adultery. You don't hear them calling about all the letters. They're pushing out there, and they're filling up those prisons with that nonsense because we have people that's getting in, the fathers are not around, and the kids don't have the fathers in this type of situation. So what has happened is we've played that lightly. We've turned our cheek to it. Why? Because so many have engaged in that, and then they say, okay, well, but the reality is, if you've done it wrong, you know, hide your sin, ask Allah to forgive you, and don't go back to it. but don't try to rationalize your sin, you know, and or that sin because you did it before. No, say that it's wrong. Allah does not like it, and this is the reason why we're in our position today, and we do need to return back to some type of basis as a people, as a nation, you know, and definitely as Muslims, of course, we need to follow the code that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has.
Brothers, we are now at the end of the program. What I want to do is give both of you 2 minutes each. 2 minutes each to make a final statement, you know, share a final thought, and then inshallah ta'ala we need to bring this to a close. Let's begin with you, Brother Baron. Brother Jamaal.
Yes, sir. Alhamdulillah. Thanks for the program, Brother Saalakhan, Brother Taariq. It was a pleasure being on with both of you today. I'll make mine even under the 2 minutes. As Muslims living in Africa and living in America from the African American community, here's our challenge, which I believe. We need to read this Quran, and we need to sharply focus it on what is happening in our time, place, and circumstance. We need, I humbly believe, a new language to bring to our people, meaning we have yet to have a movement, I would argue, that's really based on what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has revealed in that Quran from a Black American perspective, that's hit the blocks, that's hit the neighborhoods, that hit the streets. A lot of times in our movements, ox quote hadith more than they quote Quran. And I would say in the Muslim world, not just in our circumstance, but in the Muslim world, the Quran is something to be recited, but many of us don't know what's being recited. And we must learn what that book says and go forth in that. Alhamdulillah.
Allah on that said,
Brother
Khayru hadith, kitab Allah, wa khayru hadi Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The best speech is the book of Allah, and the best guidance is guidance of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. It is important for us to be able to understand as Bab al-Nuzul, reasons for revelation. Mufti Min out of South Africa during the month of Ramadan one year did a every day after that, 30 days, and he went over reasons for revelation. When you go through that, then it brings the realness to it. You see these oppressed people. The Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, these people was oppressed. And we're in a situation of oppression. And one thing about oppression, it brings people together. If you look at European Americans in oppressed areas that are poor, you'll see similarities closer to you than you will only see of your own that have a different economic situation. So for us, when we study this book, this hadith, this statement that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made, that our Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam said that Allah said, because one of the things is, we say khayru hadith, why? Because of Isnad, because Qala Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Qala Jibril alayhi salam, Qala Allah. Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, Jibril said that Allah said. That's the best Isnad. So we take this, we study the history of these people. We see when these things were revealed, what was going on. And when we see that, then we can relate to ourselves. We can see how it enforces ourselves, because Allah says, I have covered everything in this book. And what has happened is people just focus on the book to sound good. If you can sing, you're up there and you sound good and everything. But the book is not made just to be able to sound good. The book is made for you to be able to think about, to know the experiences. And when you see those experiences, and when you see at that time, and when you see the wisdom in this book, and you apply it in your life amongst each other, we'll be successful. But if we don't go to that, if we don't go to the example, we don't go to that raising, then it will never come into our heart, and we will never reach the point of being believers. And if we never reach the point of being believers, then we were not going to be successful. That's all I can say. Inshallah.
Alhamdulillah. Brother Jamaal, Musa, and Brother Taariq ibn Jalil Lang, I want to thank you both.
Jamil Lang, not Jalil. Jamil Lang.
Jamil?
Yeah, my dad was Jamil. Yeah.
Jamil. Okay, Jamil. All right. Inshallah ta'ala, I wanna thank you both for joining us today. We thank Allah for having your presence and your insights. I'm sure that our viewers, those who are live with us, and those who will see the broadcast later, will benefit from the discussion that took place here today. And on that note, we want to close with Surah Al-Asr, inshallah ta'ala. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, wal Asr. Innal insana lafi khusr. Illa alladhina amanu wa amalu salihati wa tawasaw bil haqq wa tawasaw bis sabr. Peace be unto you, brothers, audience. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum assalam.
Alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Thanks a lot.
Alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah.